Welcome to the Tech Support Guy Show, episode 35, recorded on Sunday, June 27th. China, sell us your phones, but keep your commie policy.
Welcome to the Tech Support Guy Show. I'm Mike Cermak, known on the site as Tech Guy. And with me, live from California, is Brian Hansen. There's Brian. And also on the line with us, but without video, is Dan McCarthy.
Good afternoon.
How's it going, Danny?
I am fantastic, and you guys be very, very glad that you do not see video. I'm sitting here shirtless, having just washed the Volvo.
Well, I'll bring my car over next.
All right, bring it on over. The kids will be happy to spray it down.
That's the advantage of having children, huh?
Yes, it is.
You can put them to work.
Labor.
Oh, man. Well, we got a couple of interesting news stories going on, but first, before we do, we got some more exciting personal stories. For Brian, when was your birthday? Yesterday?
My birthday was yesterday, yes.
Well, happy belated birthday.
Thank you.
More importantly, we missed, due to some technical problems, we missed a couple of shows, and I wanted to let everyone know who doesn't know already that you've had a new addition to your family.
I have indeed. A little baby girl, Catherine Olivia Hansen. There's me and her. She's much cuter than I am, even with that Vaseline goop in her eyes. Yeah. Catherine was born on May 2nd, 2010, so as of tonight, she'll be officially 8 weeks old. For all you other new parents out there, prepare to be a little jealous because she's sleeping through the night already, like 8.5 hours at a clip. And we try not to broadcast that too much, but I'm going to broadcast it here. So, yeah, happy, healthy baby girl sleeping through the night. Mom's happy and healthy, no complications. And, yeah, pretty much just whistling Dixie from here on out.
Congratulations. We're all very happy for
you.
I know you two are going to do real well there.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, let's jump into a couple of news stories. I guess the big one we ought to lead with is tell people a little bit about the iPhone 4 because no one's probably heard about it yet.
Probably not. I think even if you didn't know that it was coming out when you lived under a rock, you'd probably heard at least one of the several stories of all the things that are going wrong with it.
Yeah, poor Apple. They just can't catch a break. And it's a big story because everyone loves the iPhone so much. What was that? You guys don't feel sorry for Apple? Is that what that was?
No. If they want to, if they want to launch this stuff as fast as they possibly can, and continue to reap the margins they're reaping, I don't feel sorry for them when they launch shit too early and it's crap.
Do you think it really is, or do you think it's one of those cases where everyone really wants? I mean, it's a big story. The iPhone 4 is coming out, so any little problem they can find is a big story.
Okay,
you know what I mean?
Here's the issue. It's not necessarily a big story, but it's just whether it's big or small, it's like ridiculous. Like they've shipped units with the volume buttons switched. There are some out there that have the plus on the bottom instead of on the top.
All right, I hadn't heard that one.
Yeah.
Welcome to the new Microsoft.
Yeah, so there might be a little bit of quality control issue, huh?
A little bit of quality issues. They can't seem to make the white ones as fast as they can make the black ones. So there's a shortage of the white ones, but plenty of black ones out there. And and of course the big story, as big as it really is, apparently there's a proximity sensor on the left hand side where if you touch close enough to both ends of that proximity sensor, it shorts out your antenna and you get your call dropped.
Yes, I have heard that. And I've heard it's more likely to happen if you are left-handed.
Yes, and of course that means that the left-handed civil rights organizations are all up in arms about Apple launching a phone that doesn't work for left-handed people.
That's exactly right. How ridiculous
is that? Are you serious?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I have not heard this, and I'm left-handed, and I'm offended that I haven't heard this.
the organization doesn't have to check with you first?
Yeah, yes.
Apparently there's a lady named Lauren Milsom who runs the Left-Handers Club, and this may be just in the UK, but she runs a Left-Handers Club, which has some 90,000 members. And she told the London Telegraph, "I would strongly suggest that Steve Jobs employs left-handers in his design and testing team in future and urgently address this issue to ensure the iPhone is fit for its purpose."
Just don't use it, lady, and shut up.
Yeah, exactly. Shut up.
Do you really think that there's no left-handed people in their design and testing centers?
No. Of course there are. Of course there are. And, honestly, I don't know how the human body conducts electricity. No matter where your antenna is on your phone, whether it's on the outer strip like the iPhone 4 or built into to the motherboard in the middle of the phone, there are certain parts of the phone that when you touch it, you're going to attenuate your signal a little bit. The antenna is going to get blocked and you're going to have worse reception. Just so happens that when you put the antenna on the outside of the phone and force everyone to put their hand all the way around the damn thing, that becomes a little bit more of an issue. I don't know how they didn't, because I guess, like, obviously, at least I hope it's obvious that Apple tested this thing soup to nuts, and they didn't have these problems that were statistically significant in their lab tests.
Brian, you have an iPhone, right?
I do. I have a 3GS.
And you, more often than not, do you use the handset or do you use your hands-free?
You know what? I almost always use the handset.
Do you really? See, I was, when I had an iPhone, I was exactly the opposite. I used the headset or the hands-free. It was just much easier for me to do everything. And I'd be interested to see if the testing was probably something along those lines. You make a call, you set your phone down, and you go about testing the call reception in various areas. Throw it in your pocket, walk around the city, something like that, rather than holding on to it.
Yeah, could be.
It
but
could
then
be
my
something as
complaint
simple as that.
Yeah, my complaint as somebody with large ear canals is that the earbuds don't stay in my ears very well. So whenever I put it in my pocket and try and walk around willy-nilly, they always are falling out and bouncing around, and I just look like an idiot. So
Skull Candy has some amazing products.
Skull Candy?
Yep.
Yeah. You know what, though? I can't. I spent $300 on a phone, and it came with a handset that has a remote on it. I mean, unless you're talking about the Skull Candy, like the little adapters that plug on over top of my existing headset, they make those?
No, I've not seen those. I was talking about just headphones, just a replacement headset.
Yeah. I don't know. Those things are too damned expensive, and they always have skull and crossbones things on them, or their little pink Hello Kitty decals. I don't
much care for that too. But
sure. We know what you're really going after. So the other, and of course, one of the cool new features of the iPhone 4 is that it has 2 cameras in it. And it's been kind of a long time we've been waiting for a phone in the US to have 2 cameras on it. It's not, I won't say it's common, but it's not uncommon necessarily for some of the smartphones overseas to have that. But now we finally have a decent one in the US. And of course, the reason for the 2 cameras is you've got one on the back so that it can take pictures like your normal phone, or it's so strange, like your normal phone can. That seems silly to me. But then it has one also facing you that's on the side with the screen. And the idea being, of course, that you can use it for video conferencing. I don't know how much people are going to use this, but it seems like a neat idea. There's a couple of obvious concerns. I'm worried about battery life with that. The other thing is that, of course, no one else can really do it yet. You don't know how many, until everyone gets an iPhone 4 and has it. Yeah, I don't know how many people are going to really be using it.
Yeah, I have an interesting anecdote. Last night I had dinners with a couple of our friends, and the one guy had just been to a baby shower where somebody had the new iPhone 4, and they were playing with it, and he's like, "Oh yeah, so have you done any video conferencing in it? How's it work?" It's like, "Yeah, you know what? I don't know anybody else that has the phone.
That's
so
the
I haven't
problem.
done any video conferencing with it."
Why couldn't they put Skype or something on there so that you could actually use it with someone?
Yeah, it's day 4, and that's like the key feature, one of the key features of the phone, and you haven't been able to use it yet.
It's certainly
if
something
Skype
that
doesn't work on the OS 4.
I don't know about that.
DOJ is going to have a field day with them.
With Apple, you mean?
Yep, antitrust and all of that.
Well, is there a Skype that works on previous versions?
I believe there was a Skype that works on.
I think you're right, but of course it didn't have video.
Right, exactly.
So the biggest complaint I've heard about the video on the iPhone 4, video conferencing that is that it only works over Wi-Fi. It doesn't work over cellular.
You know what? That doesn't surprise me because the bandwidth that it's going to take to send video, even at a low resolution, it's just it's too much for 3G.
I may be off the mark a little bit, but I think the actual iPhone's video conferencing service doesn't work unless you're on a Wi-Fi connection.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I'm pretty sure they turned off the 3G access to the video conferencing.
Apple says that that's because of limitations with the, exactly as Dan was saying, with the 3G, right? And with the carriers. I suspect the biggest limitation there being that they don't want to have to deal with that amount of traffic. But, because that would be a lot of bandwidth, even if they could handle it. That's a lot of bits and bytes that they're going to be having to go across. But so, Engadget did some tests and used a MiFi connection. And for those who don't know, MiFi is a, how would you describe it? It's a wireless access point that gives you Wi-Fi, but it's actually connecting to the internet through a cellular network. So it's essentially connecting you at the same speed as you would. It's connecting at 3G, but it's kind of tricking the iPhone into thinking it's connected on a high-speed Wi-Fi system.
I'm sure it worked, but if you imagine everybody and their mother doing some video conferencing on their iPhone or cell phone in general, you're going to cripple the network.
Well, and I think that's something that we need to address as well. Maybe, we should go up to the towers and fix that. But let me just say, you're right, it did work, but sporadically. They said they did have some problems and couldn't create a connection at all or establish a good connection at all if it was transatlantic, if they were going from US to UK. If it was UK to UK, there was no problem. If it was US to US, there was no problem. But whenever they were trying to go international, there was a problem, which doesn't make any sense to me. Because if it's Wi-Fi, they say international is okay. So I don't know why that would make any difference. But in any event, apparently that was their results in it. So you're right, Dan. The problem, of course, is that the carriers can't handle that much traffic. Already, when the iPhone first came out, there was major issues with data, with AT&T not being able to handle it in many particular areas. And if you have that much data going through that people are using video calls, that's going to be an issue. But I think they need to address that relatively soon because I think people are going to want to do that. When they see it advertised that it has video calls on it, they're not going to read the fine print that says, only if you're on Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Of course, now that AT&T is charging you for bandwidth, there's no unlimited bandwidth anymore, then why don't they just let you do it anyway? Then they're making more money anyway. They're charging you a couple of bucks per gigabyte. Let them push that data through.
No, you're going to still cripple the network. So other paying customers are not going to be able to make phone calls because somebody else is video conferencing. Like me, I would have, if I had had this capability when my daughter was born, my phone would have been on all the time to everybody just watching her sleep.
Even if they were charging you per gigabyte.
I don't pay for my cell phone.
Probably. Oh, that's true. Well, you're in a unique situation there. Most people do pay for their cell phones.
It's true.
And most people's companies, when they got that $1,000 data bill at the end of the month, would say something to them.
It happened to me once from Mexico, and we're not going to go into it, and they just slapped my wrist.
So anyhow, I don't know if there's anything else to say about that. Hey, what else do we want to mention about the iPhone 4? Anything else catch your attention?
The iPhone 4 makes me think of the Jetsons.
The Jetsons? You mean just the physical design of it?
The video conferencing, the physical design of it, just... I just remember watching the Jetsons as a kid, and the video conferencing portion of the Jetsons was pretty amazing. And now you have it on your cell phone.
Yep.
Well,
how long do you think it'll be before they will have the video conferencing through cellular, the way I want it?
I think that you're probably 5 to 10 years away from that.
No.
Yeah, no.
Yep.
Yeah.
No.
Yep.
All right. How much are we betting?
I'll put 100 on it.
That it's going to be at least 5 years.
At least 5 years.
All right.
I'll put 100 of 5 years from now dollars on it, which is like $60 today. I'll pay you $100 in 5 years if you can actually do reliable video conferencing over a 3G or 4G cellular network,
or whatever cellular network is out in the next.
Yes,
because
they're not
4 years.
3G.
Yeah.
they're not going to fix 3G or 4G. They're not. There's going to be a new network that has to come out in order to support something like this. And to do it reliably, as Brian said, you're going to have to do this across the country.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
the carriers right now don't like doing that across the country. So what you'll have is some carriers will have great networks in, specific metropolitan areas, Verizon in DC, for example. And then you'll have AT&T who, because the feds have come in and say, you guys have to play nice, will be able to lease time on that network.
Yep.
But Verizon doesn't much care for AT&T leasing time. So, oops, a call gets dropped.
Yeah.
Are you suggesting that they might do that intentionally? They might give higher priority to their own customers than to others.
Absolutely. And it makes sense. So again, I mean, you have to have a lot of infrastructure changes that this country just isn't capable of making that quickly with regulations alone.
We shall see.
So yes, so you've got $100. You got a hundy from Dan and a hundy from me.
Good.
If in 5 years, but I guarantee you, if it happens, it is not going to be because the wickety wicks at AT&T and Verizon have actually done what they're supposed to do. It'll be because some really genius guy at Google develops the world's best video compression algorithm and puts it open source, and it's on every phone immediately anyway.
Well, now, how much, and I don't know the answer to this, but how much bandwidth do you need for a small resolution video conference? And it doesn't need to be 30 frames a second either. If you're doing video conferencing, 3 or 4 frames a second doesn't look that bad.
You're right.
And it's a small resolution, even if they're only, I don't know what they're doing, but even if they're doing 320 by 240 or something, it's not
Mike,
much data.
We tried doing that here on Skype with my crappy connection.
Right. Well,
With
and
my
4G
crappy
is supposed
connection.
to hit what, 200 kilobits a second? You tell me we can't do video conferencing at a low resolution and a low frame rate at 200 frames per second? Especially if, now here's the other thing about it, especially if you're only transmitting video over that data. What if because the AT&T allows you to do video and, it allows you to do data and voice at the same time. You have the voice going over the voice network.
It's still on the side. No, it's still on the same network, isn't it?
Yeah, it's still on the same network, sure. But I'm saying that your device only has to handle, voice through the voice network and data through the data network. I mean, yeah, you're right. It's the same network, but you know what I'm
it's the
saying.
same. That's my point. It's the same network that you're tapping into.
Yeah, maybe that wouldn't help. I don't know. I don't know enough about how that works. Anyhow, we shall see. All right, we've got witnesses. I've got the recording. We're good to go. All right, moving on. Anything else on iPhone? You good with iPhone?
Well, I would say, I really want to hold one because the whole Retina display thing that they talk about,
high res.
I don't know exactly how they describe it or why they call it Retina display, but the display is supposed to be crisper than crisp.
That's a stupid name, Retina display.
Well, yeah.
I guess they don't like super high res.
Says the guy without retinas.
Maybe that's why I don't like it. Wow, humbug. Who needs displays? Oh, man.
Anyway.
So speaking of...
I want to see it.
Speaking of phones, I really want to see it too. As soon as one of us have it, we'll talk about it on the show in more detail and try and break it. And try and do that video conferencing somehow.
Yes.
So, Dan, do you still have an Android phone?
I do.
I don't know if you heard about this. This was just in the news the other day. For the first time, Google has used their power to remotely remove programs from Android phones.
Not heard this.
Yeah, of course, most of the manufacturers, including Apple, have the power to remotely go into your phone and remove applications from it. And Google has had that ability for Android phones from the start. And it's a little controversial, but I don't see a problem with it as long as it's, used for good and not evil. And in this case, it was. So Google remotely wipes apps off of Android phones. The problem was that this guy created 2 applications that claimed to be one thing and in fact was another. He considered them proof of concept applications. And one of them that was downloaded over 300 times, I think, was supposed to be a preview for the movie Eclipse, which is part of that vampire series, I suppose. Twilight series.
It is.
And crazy kids and their vampires.
Wait a minute. Yeah, you sounded old and crotchety when you said that.
Just I've got the pale white skin too. Now you guys are going to say I have no retinas and I'm a vampire. That's my problem. So anyhow, apparently he proved that he could develop a program that could be used to bootstrap a rootkit, effectively allowing someone to take remote control of a phone, having an app already installed on it, and so on. Anyhow, so there was code in this thing that could be remotely execute onto the phone. And he put it up onto the Google Store and, of course, Market. It's not called the store, Google Market, and it was approved. And then Google asked him to take it down, and he did. And then they remotely went out and deleted it from other people's phones.
Yeah.
And Google points out that as part of their content policy for developers that, quote, developers should not upload or otherwise make available applications that offer misleading information about the application's purpose.
Well, they did it out of protection, and they did it kind of out of a violation in their policies, right?
Right. Sure. And in this case, they were relatively minor issues. I mean, this was really a Hello World application. Literally, the one application said remotely could send a Hello World. But still, it's definitely a violation of their agreement with the developer.
Well, right. yeah. I think there are two issues here. That Google Marketplace is known for its lack of quality control.
Right. Which can be an advantage.
Which can be an advantage, absolutely. And then the other issue is Google has the power and has executed on that power. And like you said, as long as it's for good, you're fine. But I don't like anyone having that kind of power. But every carrier is going to have that power. When you get into having content or applications developed by someone outside of that carrier or their partners.
Sure.
Right. So it's not going to go away regardless of the carrier. And Google's just the first to execute on it and admit it anyway.
Right. And I think that there would be more uproar if they didn't have such power. If someone could go into the Google Marketplace and buy this, or these were free downloads, of course, download a virus, and then Google didn't have the power to remove it. I think that would be a bigger issue, really, especially for your average user.
It's damned if you do and damned if you don't.
Right.
No, I'm okay with this for the most part. It's a little scary. I mean, because with great power comes great responsibility. But there's always someone that's going to misuse that kind of power. I don't know.
I think this is just the perfect segue to go into another story that I wanted to get your opinion on, Dan.
Okay.
So a new bill grants Fed power to shut down the web.
That's just freaking ridiculous.
Speaking of, using your power for good and having too much power, and
you are making that shit up.
So
I've read a little bit about this, and this is absolutely absurd.
You might know more about it than what I do. Do you want to go into it?
Honestly, I haven't. I've only read headlines on this. But
all right. So apparently, the proposed bill would effectively give the president an internet kill switch, where if there's a national emergency because the internet is such an important part of our communications network and so on, they could take control of it and force ISPs and backbone providers to dedicate traffic from certain things and maybe cut off the porn sites, for example.
Now that would just be a tragedy.
I don't know what the internet would be without them, but they didn't mention that. That's just my interpretation of it. But it's Protecting Cyberspace as a National Asset Act, PCNAA, and would require
National Asset Act.
Mm-hmm. And it would require broadband providers, search engines, and software companies to comply with emergency orders issued by the Department of Homeland Security under penalty of a fine.
Do this.
Well, so
or give me $500.
Let's take an analogy. Yeah, exactly right.
I suspect it'll be a hefty fine.
Help us prevent World War IV, or pay us $500.
Well, and what was really funny is I'm trying to remember who it was. It might have been. I don't want to misquote it, but I saw this on the Daily Show, and they had a quote there from a senator, and I thought it was Lieberman, but I could be wrong. And he was saying that, pointing out that that China already has this in place, and that how an important asset it is, for China, and that we ought to be doing it because China's doing it. I was like, well, yeah, because there's a free country. That's exactly a good comparison.
Right.
Well, the absurdity of it is that the internet is more than any one company or backbone provider. Now, there are key backbone providers, no doubt about it. Verizon, AT&T, they're all in it. But to get the entire nation's providers and software vendors to...
I suspect it isn't entire nation. It's probably if you handle over a certain amount of traffic or something.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So key elements, this is from a press release from the Senate from Lieberman's office. He says, quote, key elements of the legislation would include the creation of an Office of Cyberspace Policy in the Executive Office of the President, run by a Senate-confirmed director who would advise the President on all cybersecurity matters. The director will lead and harmonize federal efforts to secure cyberspace.
Harmonize? They really put harmonize?
And will develop a national strategy that incorporates all elements of cyberspace policy, including military, law enforcement, intelligence, and diplomatic. Creation of a National Center for Cyberspace and Communications, NCCC, at the Department of Homeland Security to elevate and strengthen the department's cybersecurity capabilities. None of this is really that interesting.
They just threw harmonize in there just to make it sound a little softer. Fucking commie bastards.
Yeah.
Harmonize. I'm gonna focus on this for just a second longer. Harmonize. What does that even mean with regards to coordinating national security events? Well, what does it mean? Harmonize. Are we going to sing Kumbaya and get everyone to come together with their guns?
Let me read you two more quick points here. They're going to require the NCCC to work with the private sector to establish a risk-based security requirement to strengthen cybersecurity for the nation's most critical infrastructure that, if disrupted, would result in national or regional catastrophe. And require covered critical infrastructure to report significant breaches to the NCCC to ensure the federal government has a complete picture of the security of these sensitive networks.
This is a result of Microsoft, Google. Who else was hit? Who else was broken into a few months ago or admitted that they were broken into? I know Google did.
Google, yeah. Well, and Google was a big one.
This is a direct result of that.
The NCCC must share information, including threat analysis, with owners and operators regarding risks to their networks. The Act will provide specifically liability protections to owners and operators that comply with the new risk-based security requirements, creation of a responsible framework developed in coordination with the private sector for the President to authorize emergency measures to protect the nation's most critical infrastructure if a cyber vulnerability is being exploited or is about to be exploited. The President must notify Congress in advance before exercising these emergency powers. Any emergency measures imposed must be the least disruptive necessary to respond to the threat and will expire after 30 days unless the President extends them. The bill authorizes no new surveillance authorities and does not authorize the government to, quote, take over private networks.
Well, this is a big nugget to chew on.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about that. I know how Dan feels about it, but
well, what I don't understand. So, like, you think about what are the other national assets, right? There's our broadband spectrum, and there's our airspace, and all of those things are federally regulated, and there's not too much there's no real conflict between what's our airspace versus what's Canada's airspace. But when it comes to the internet, as far as I could tell, there aren't any borders in those series of tubes. It's just one tube, actually, and there is no border that separates it from one to the next. So I don't understand how you create federal regulation that limits the access to the internet or networks in the domestic borders and not F up the entire world. Right? Because the biggest target out there is Google, right? So if somebody breaks in and takes down Google, isn't Google pretty much connected to everything? Like I can't even feed my cat without referencing Google somehow, right? So how does this work? And then does this just become okay, well now the US has done it, and now we're going to go nationalize every single country's internet assets, and it breaks down the whole concept of the thing to begin with. The free flow of information.
Well, the internet was not created as a free flow of information. It was originally a communications network for the military that evolved into a communications network for institutions of higher learning. So it was originally a military developed technology.
Yep.
That's true.
But it has morphed into something much greater than that. And you're absolutely right. There are no borders. And there's absolutely no way that the U.S. can effectively control. The U.S. can control bandwidth, and they can take down websites. You know, they can do things like that.
Especially the ones that are within their borders. You know,
that are physically hosted within the United
routers
States.
And so on, right?
Right.
Yeah, that are physically hosted within, that live on a hard drive somewhere here in the United States. They can do that. They absolutely can, because they can take down that little piece of the internet. But the internet is much bigger than the United States.
So what exactly, I mean, obviously, if Google or some major backbone in the U.S. is under attack, it's going to be in their best interest to divert that traffic and, you know, bring the attack to an end as quickly as possible. Do we really need the government to have their slimy hands in on it as well? I mean, what
I
are
think
we?
The fear is that, like Brian was saying with the comedian, the whatever show that was on, Jon Stewart, whatever. The fear is China's already doing this, and that China was involved in the attack. The government was involved in the attack on Google, Microsoft. Who else was it? A few months ago. You know,
I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure China said the government wasn't involved. I'm pretty sure they said it was just a lone hacker all by himself.
Right, and we should believe China, because they definitely have our best interests at heart. Yeah,
right.
Definitely.
So, but again, I don't know what the government's going to do. I guess by opening communication between these private networks, that's going to be important. And I know Google did that to a certain extent by coming out and giving out details of the attack pretty widely, which is not always done. A lot of times, companies keep pretty quiet about attacks, especially if they're successful. I guess that's an advantage.
I think that's one of the keys that I'm taking away from this, is that the government is saying, if you have a significant security breach, you've got to let us know.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily have a problem with that.
I agree. If that's one thing that comes out of this bill, I think I would view that one as a positive.
Yeah. I don't have a problem with that.
But I don't know how you have one presidentially or Senate appointed director of the internet who has the power to say, Arkansas, shut it down.
King of the interwebs.
I'm with you. Yeah. There is no politician, in my opinion, that is intelligent enough, that has enough information and technical know-how to be able to make that decision.
Right. I mean, I love Obama, but I wouldn't even trust him with this decision.
But he's the most.
If they made him chief of the internet too, which effectively this would do, because this guy would report to Obama. I don't trust him to do it.
Can you imagine past presidents? I mean, Obama's pretty technically literate compared to past presidents who were not. And I'm not just picking on Bush. I mean, I think that most.
I'm with you.
Politicians in general are not that.
I wouldn't want any of those monkeys doing anything with my interwebs.
Right. And to Mike's point, I think there's a lot of self-governance that happens. I understand the need for the government to step in and say, just as a consumer, I want the government to step in and say that if Google releases 300,000 credit card numbers and one of them happens to be mine, I want the Federal Consumer Protection Agency to know about that. And I want them to be able to take repercussions for Google. Otherwise, there's kind of not a lot of incentive, I suppose, for Google to protect the data that they do.
Well, they're already required to notify you if they think that your credit card could potentially have been, leaked. And I think that the free market can take care of a lot of that. If every week I'm getting notice from Google that my credit card could be leaked, then I'm not going to be using Google anymore. You know what I mean? Or any website. It doesn't matter.
Yep.
I think they have a lot of internal.
But it only takes once for that to ruin your entire credit score. No
doubt about that.
Because the Google hasn't committed a crime by not telling you, or by not informing you quickly enough, or by not protecting your your data enough, you can't sue a business in a civil lawsuit. It has to be a criminal lawsuit. You can't get economic recovery from a business in a civil lawsuit, at least according to this article, which seems like a big freaking
that seems like
almost as worrisome as the potential for abuse of power by the government is the immunity from civil suits granted to businesses.
Oh, I think if that law is passed, if they comply with this new government thing and take part in it, then it said that they get certain...
right. You're right. If the company has complied with federal standards, plaintiffs will be unable to collect damages related to economic losses. So maybe
that's a problem.
So it's somewhat of a problem. I mean, if ideally, and this is kind of odd for me to say, if the regulations on the industry in question are stringent enough, and the company has been found to be in compliance with those, then I don't see a problem with that. One of the everybody complains about healthcare in the country, right?
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. One of the reasons that healthcare is so expensive is the litigation that happens.
Yes, that's true.
And there are good lawsuits and there are bad lawsuits, but a lot of people will sue a doctor on the off chance that they can get some money out of it.
Yep.
So I think that's what this bill is trying to address. We've regulated this industry. This industry is regulated, and this company has been found to be in compliance with that. Now, another company who leaves a sponge within, a patient, and that patient, gets toxic shock, then you can sue them.
Yeah.
In a civil suit.
Yeah.
This one, however, they do what they're supposed to, and they don't leave sponges in their patients.
But they do what they're supposed to according to the government, and how well are they going to monitor all of that? When they do screw up, then they're not held liable. I don't like that.
That I agree with you, but I
get the silver star I get to wear, and then anything I do is okay. I don't have to follow. You know
what? That is very reminiscent of what is it? World War II, where people got the stickers in their windows. What did they get those stickers for? Anyway. You know what I'm talking about. I can't remember the details.
Yeah, I can't remember what it is either.
Basically, you support the United States government and you're a great patriot.
And then you don't get pulled over? Is that the idea?
Right. Yeah, stuff like that.
Uh-huh. I've heard of that happening in certain states, that you make a big donation to a police department and you get a special, I think one was a license plate, frame. And and you got special privileges then. But I don't think that stuff should happen, is the point.
Yeah, I'm with you. The government shouldn't be regulating.
I know you're all pro-government, Dan, but I'm in this case.
No, I'm not. I am absolutely not. Ideally, see, I'm not an idealist. I'm a realist. Ideally, that would work. Ideally, the government is capable. It has specialists that are indeed capable of regulating the industry, and also has an enforcement agency attached to it to make sure that corporations are in fact complying with this. And I'm not talking yearly audits either, because anyone can pass a yearly audit anyway.
Well, how about the audits of the oil drilling there?
Oh, Jesus, Mary.
Well, that's what we do here. See, you set up this thing, and then you just have the companies fill out the forms for the guys.
Right. Yeah. But what I'm saying is, ideally, it works, in an ideal situation. But, communism doesn't work because everyone has their own interests at heart.
Right. If it weren't for the people, it'd be great.
Right, exactly. So stop trusting your government and revolt is the, moral of my story.
All right. Well, I've got one more story to get your opinion on. ICANN has okayed .xxx domain names. You hear about that, Brian?
Yes, I did. I did read about it.
So we're going to have a new top-level domain names. As everyone knows, we currently have a bunch of them, .com, .net, .org.
.tw.
Yeah, right, exactly. UK one. You got it, exactly. And those are the top-level domains. And many times ICANN, the organization that's responsible for those, has turned down requests to make a .xxx top-level domain. And there's some advantages and disadvantages to it. For one thing, if you are trying to do web filtering, it's pretty easy to just block everything that's .xxx. But this is not going to require all porn sites to go to .xxx. It's just going to be an option for them. And what's interesting, what I kind of liked about this, is that, let me find the details here. Well, what's interesting is that already they've had 110,000 pre-registrations for companies who want to have a .xxx address. It's $60 a year, which is a little bit more than most, .coms and .orgs. They're usually between
a little bit.
Yeah, they're usually between 10 and 20, depending on what kind of deals you get and what kind of scams you get into. But but $60 a year, which is not unreasonable, I don't think. No. But what's interesting is that $10 of each of those goes to child protection initiatives through a nonprofit group. Which is kind of interesting, I thought.
That's bullshit.
That is interesting.
I'm so glad you could join us today, Dan.
No,
seriously, I want to hear your opinion. I really do.
I'm all about protecting children, but first of all, you don't make a government-regulated entity donate money to a specific nonprofit, and trust that nonprofit is going to administer the funds in a way that you would agree with.
Yeah,
I
agree. That's putting all your eggs in one basket and making everybody believe that basket is all sunshine and roses.
To make you feel better,
the way philanthropy. I'm a misanthrope.
The way it works with ICANN with domain names is that someone applies to run the top level domains like the .xxx, and that company then gets to run that and register them and so on. And they have to put up a lot of money in order to do it and pass a lot of regulation to do it. But this company is going to be in charge of .xxx. It's not going to be ICANN, and it's not going to be a government organization. And what's also interesting is that the nonprofit group that is going to get this money is one that has been set up by the guy who owns the company that's going to register these .xxx domains.
Of course it is.
Well, and
it's the same. It's the same way that you look at one of the celebrities. I forget which one it was, but they looked at his tax return, and his as a celebrity, as a whatever he was, let's call him a recording artist. He made $3 million in salary and paid taxes on that $3 million. But then his foundation, because he's the director and CEO of that foundation, he made $17 million in salary, but because it's a 529C or whatever the F it is, he didn't have to pay taxes on any of that salary. But the recording studio that he worked for is the place where he funneled all of that money through for the 529C or whatever. I mean, that has bad news, but
it's a conflict of interest.
Same note, you have to believe that guy that owns the XXX board or whatever, you have to believe that he's not going to become China and decide, you know what, I'm going to shut down all the XXX websites today, just because I feel like it.
I'm pretty sure he wouldn't have that power contractually, but I understand what you mean.
He absolutely would. He absolutely would. He could censor any individual. He's the guy in charge of the XXX domains. He now has the ultimate power of censorship. There's nobody above him. He doesn't report to anybody.
Well, and he's still overseen by ICANN. And of course, he had during their application, he had to put in, under what, who's allowed to register those domains and under what conditions they can lose registration, all that kind of stuff. So it's pretty well set out, and that's normal practice. That's the way all top level domains work. But what's also kind of interesting that other top level domains don't have is that, well, for example, there's .us top level domains, and I think we might even have techguy.us. And the only limitation to that's different from .coms is that you have to be established in the United States. You have to have a U.S. mailing address. So that's not really any limitation whatsoever. Anyone in the UK could rent a PO box in the US and then get it. But anyhow, this is kind of interesting. It's a little bit different, is that he's going to establish a code of practices for adult sites that will have .xxx domain names. And this is kind of what you were speaking to, Brian. He says that .xxx domain names will have to follow this code of practices, which would include would address such issues as deceptive marketing practices, the use of malware, practices designed to attract children or suggest child pornography, and the misuse of personal information. And he believes that the new domain name and practices would help porn sites face fewer complaints and enjoy greater customer retention.
Yeah, this is really hard for me to talk about because I have no idea what a porn website looks like.
I get jokes.
I really don't have an opinion. I'm not a subject matter expert on this one.
Is your wife standing over your shoulder?
Yes.
Well, I'm not opposed to having a new top-level domain for porn sites. I am opposed to forcing them to go to .xxx.
Yeah, that would be too.
And it doesn't sound like they're going to force them yet, but it's a small step. Once you've established the top-level domain, you'll get civil liberties unions coming in saying, "Oh, our kids are looking at porn," or you'll get fundamentalists saying our kids are looking at porn.
Right.
We want to filter it, and we want you to make it easy for us stupid users to filter it.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Unless someone is trying to force all of them to go to .xxx, I don't know if it's a problem. I think if it's an optional thing that's going to make it easier for them to filter, they're going to have code of practice that they're at least supposed to be following.
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing.
Well, it's a good thing right now, but you can't force them until you have an established top-level domain you can force them to go to.
That's true.
So
you say it's a slippery slope. May be the first step to that.
Yeah, honestly, I don't see how this guy in Florida, Mr. Lawley or whatever his name is, Stuart Lawley. Yeah, no, he's the chairman and chief executive of ICANN.
Hey, Brian.
Well, anyway, so this is just a kind of a money-making deal for the guy in Florida who proposed this. Because they're not forced to go there. So filtering, if you filter out all the XXX sites, okay, great. But there's still, mistyping Microsoft.com can still take you to a porn site, and your 7-year-old can still see it. So I don't really know how that prevents anything. Truly, if you're not going to force people to show up in this XXX neighborhood, then there's no real value to this guy having it other than the fact that he can charge everyone who even defensively registers. So Microsoft decides they're going to defensively register Microsoft XXX just because they don't want somebody, dirtying their already impeccably maintained brand name. You know what I mean? It's like, this just doesn't make sense to me. This is money. This is somebody scratching somebody's back to get a kickback on the rear end. So I don't know. This makes me angry just because it's people in power abusing their power. Feels like.
How many pre-registrations did you say were out there?
110,000.
They have 100,000. Yeah, and like I said, somebody, again, who knows who this person is, but somebody said that they're most likely defensive registrations, like the one the Microsoft example.
Absolutely. Well, or if you run a big porn site, I mean, you're obviously going to get your name .xxx right away. I need to hurry up and register techguy.xxx.
Exactly. And you're going to pay $60 for that.
Right. Right.
A year, $60 a year in perpetuity.
That's right.
Yep. Yeah. That's a lot of money. You're absolutely right. It's a lot of money.
I don't know if it's a big deal for a big company. I mean, that's for a small company. That's nothing. I mean, and it's twice as much as a normal registration, a little more than twice as much as normal registration, but the .US's cost more than normal ones as well.
Mike, it's a tax. It's a tax.
Yep,
it literally,
exactly what
you get nothing for it. You get nothing for it, and you didn't get a vote in whether or not it was there.
I see. You're
it's
saying
taxation
for
without
those
representation.
For those who are getting it just to hold their name.
Yeah.
Right. To maintain their brands.
But that's something you got to deal with no matter what. Anytime you create a new top-level domain, you're going to be dealing with that. I mean, there's going to be...
You're absolutely right. And the more top-level domains we get, the more problematic it becomes.
I think the three of us need to go together and make our own top-level domain. I don't know what it is yet, but we need to come up with something. Because they did the same thing. Whenever they created .biz and .info and all these others, there were a lot of companies that bought the .biz and .info just so that they had it. So you're right. Yeah. There is a lot of that, but I don't think it's specific to this particular top-level domain. In fact, I suspect there's fewer of them. I think that Microsoft and Google would be less likely to do it than a biz or info, because who's going to confuse that? Who's going to accidentally go to... And if someone registers it, I think that there'd be a good lawsuit for trademark confusion or something anyway.
Well, I don't know. I mean, Microsoft.xxx could be, a bunch of little people in, softcore porn movies, and it's video on demand. I don't know. You could justify that. It has nothing to do with the software.
Oh, man, you're totally good. You're right.
I mean, I don't know. So this is, again, okay, let's say that it is valid for Microsoft then to sue for copyright infringement. Who gets rich off of that? This organization and the freaking lawyers.
Yeah,
that's true. So we should have no more new top-level domains.
I think that we need to control the amount of top-level domains that we have. There are reasons to have top-level domains, and there are reasons that we only had .net, .com, .org, and .edu, .gov. You know, those were kind of the first 5.
Mm-hmm.
.mil, right? Because they were the specific reasons why the internet was created. You know, you have edu for all of your learning organizations.
Higher learning.
Higher learning, right? You have .org for originally nonprofits, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Right. You have .com for businesses, commerce. You have mil for military, gov for government, so on and so forth. I mean, it was controlled. Now, as you keep polluting the top level domain area, you have to have more people. You kind of have everyone by their nose. You're pulling them along. You have to get that top level domain with yours. You know, Microsoft
I guess
whatever.
For me, this is just drawing borders for the sake of drawing borders and making money. Like there's not any value added to creating this domain.
Well, other than the fact,
the more that people are going to see that, and they're going to stop doing it, and it's going to stop making money.
Well, I mean, the value they're trying to add here is that as far as consumers are concerned, it'll be easier to block those types of sites. And that could be an advantage for your site to be able to say that.
And I guess I'm just arguing that it's not going to actually be easier because you're not forcing them to go to triple.
Well, that's true. You're not forcing. Exactly. It's just those sites who choose to voluntarily go to it. Now, the other advantage is that
once it's established, you can force them.
Well, maybe. I don't know if I don't think anyone's suggesting that, but I guess anything's possible.
It's been suggested in the past.
That's but the other advantage to this is that if this becomes established and if they actually hold to this code of practices, you would know that a .xxx domain name won't have malware and won't have deceptive marketing practices and won't have child pornography and all these other things that they mentioned.
And a million IT workers lose their jobs because they no longer have to get rid of malware from people coming back from the weekends looking at porn.
Well, only those sites though. It's voluntary, so you're still gonna have plenty of .coms that'll be sending out malware. It's just that the .xxx's will supposedly be clean, and if that actually is the case, that could be an advantage.
I agree with you. It could be.
And for consumers of adult entertainment information, I get how this could be actually a good thing, but I really don't think there are going to be that many sites that voluntarily sign up to go be part of this XXX neighborhood that for no good reason, because they're going to automatically get filtered by every school, library, public institution in the world. And I mean,
and they've got new restrictions they're just voluntarily jumping on.
Right.
I agree with you. I guess the only ones who are going to
argue that. Sorry, go
ahead. We keep stepping on each other. I was going to say the only ones who are really going to jump in and do this are going to be the big ones that everyone knows anyway. I mean, I could see Playboy and whoever the big well-known ones that everyone knows anyway, who already follow these code of practices and don't need someone to oversee them anyway. Those are going to be the only ones who are going to jump in and do it anyway.
Well, actually, there's this one lady here on the same article that says, she represents an organization with big names like Hustler and Adam and Eve, and their concern is that the board that oversees the .xxx domain could engage in censorship, and that the entire industry could come under increased regulation.
Yep.
If the board doesn't like what a producer creates, the possibility exists that they could just censor it. And I get that. So, I mean, the only thing I think that comes out of value, if you're going to volunteer to go into the XXX domain, volunteer to be filtered, and volunteer to go by this code of conduct with no malware, no pop-ups, no whatever, is that you can charge more. The .com version, you got to suffer through all these pop-ups and all of the little women that pop up on the corner of your desktop that I've heard about, never actually seen. You don't have to close those little windows and everything if you go to the XXX version, but that's going to cost you an extra, $20 a year or whatever to have the XXX. I don't know. I guess I'm a consumer advocate in general. It doesn't matter if you're consuming porn or cookies. I'm all for protecting you, but this just, I don't know. This doesn't feel like the right way to do it. Personally. I don't know what the right way is.
That was going to be my next question.
Yeah.
Well, and we should point out that apparently ICANN has not officially signed the final contract on this. It looks like It's going to go through, but they're waiting for financial and technical abilities to be confirmed that this company will be able to handle it. From what I'm reading, it looks like it is going to be a done deal, but.
No. Interesting stuff.
All right, fellas. Anything else you want to mention? Anything else you want to comment on?
I did have one thing. I guess there's a new Motorola Droid X coming out in maybe July-ish. But I guess the key feature that it has, other than Flash 10.1 support, going for it above the iPhone 4,
I'll believe that when I see it.
It has a built-in Wi-Fi hotspot from Verizon.
That's actually a feature. You mean the ability to broadcast Wi-Fi?
Yes.
Okay, that's actually a feature of Android 2.2.
And also of WebOS for Palm Pre if you're on Verizon. Sprint blocks that feature, but in Verizon you can do that with the Palm Pre.
It's actually a feature of the operating system, not of the.
But it's what's the big thing is going to be that this will be the first phone with that upgraded version of the operating system, and who knows how long it'll be before it'll be available for download on every other Android.
And on other Android phones, there are applications that you can currently download for like Android 2.1 and even Android 1.6 and 1.5. There are applications, but for the Android 1.5, 1.6, and I believe even 2.1 versions of the operating system, you have to gain root access to the phone, which for the iPhone users, it's basically jailbreaking your phone,
right?
To be able to do this. But this is pretty neat that they're allowing this to go through. I mean, that's the Droid's on Verizon.
Yeah,
Verizon's been pretty open with that. That's really one of their features that they're trying to differentiate with. They have a couple of phones now that offer that.
Yeah.
This is great as opposed to AT&T's. We're now going to charge you for bandwidth.
Well, and I'm sure there's a cap with Verizon, even if they advertise it as unlimited, and I'm not sure that they do. I'm sure there's a cap on it. Just as there was, even with AT&T's unlimited before, it was, 5 gigabits?
Yeah.
I don't know what it actually is. Well, I mean, this is apparently this article on CNET basically says they've taken the Verizon MiFi mobile hotspot and put it in a phone. So as an advancement of technology and taking a separate discrete object like a camera or the MiFi hotspot and putting it into the phone, that's what true integration is supposed to be. So this is the same. You can also tether 5 separate devices to your 3G thing. And yes, it does charge you. They do charge you an extra $20 a month for a 2 gigabyte data plan. On this. Yikes! Wow.
Yeah, that's steep. That's
that
steep.
Is steep.
And I tether my phone regularly just to get access, quick access to check my email, to send an attachment that's on my laptop, not on my phone, things like that. So being charged for that kind of blows.
Yeah, I'm all for not being charged for things.
Unfortunately, that's going to be a recurring theme as far as data goes. I think we are seeing the last of the unlimited data anywhere, whether it's mobile or broadband or whatever.
You think so?
Yeah, I think it's been a long time coming for the U.S. Brian, you were telling me, weren't you, that when you were in Australia, they were already metering your bandwidth for broadband?
Yeah, no, that's true. We were my flat was on a 500 megabyte a month plan through Optimus or Optimum Online, something like that.
Optimus Prime.
Optimus Prime Online. And because my roommate Nigel was a serious Quake head, and he was always online playing LAN versions, or I guess WAN versions of Quake, we exceeded that.
Yeah. They start throttling you?
Yep, they did.
That's awesome.
They actually turned us off for a couple days.
That's a sharp throttle.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is almost a regression because we were metered before, and they kind of opened it up.
Yeah.
All right.
So here's my question: radio is free. Radio is data that is transmitted over the air and received by a user's device.
Correct.
Why can't we get there with data?
Because you're not sending the same bit to every user.
I see.
Everyone's looking at different things, and you've got two-way communication.
I see.
Because
you got thousands of tiny little radio stations instead of one giant one.
And radio is sponsored by advertisers. It's being paid for. There's basically a corporate subsidy.
The web. So is the web.
Well, no,
so
specific areas. No. Specific areas of the web are subsidized. So unless you can force the ads of a particular sponsor.
And there have been companies that did that.
Data.
Remember, what was that one dial-up service that was pretty popular for a while? It was free.
Net Zero?
It was Net Zero. There you go. That's exactly what I was thinking of. And the way they worked is exactly what you were saying. It was free dial-up internet, except that there was a bar across the top of your screen that gave you advertisements directly from them. Because otherwise, if you're looking at Google's website, it's not helping out Net Zero at all. And same thing with Comcast. You're only getting ads for Comcast when you're on Comcast's site.
That's right. So you could get back to that with a broadband provider similar to how Net Zero functioned. You're going to get these ads, and you have to install this application so that you can receive these ads.
Mm-hmm.
Problem was, it wasn't quite profitable enough for them. So I don't know how it would work out for broadband. And the problem with broadband is you have to get that last mile there. You have to get it connected into the consumer's home, and who owns that copper?
Yep. Well, I think that's why you see Google buying up ISPs and fiber.
They are still
more than that. That's just their short-term solution, right? They bought wireless spectrum.
Yep.
That's what they paid Boku dollars for. And honestly, I think that's going to lead to free internet for all. I think that's going to be
so too.
And unless I'm mistaken, they're still the owner of the largest amount of dark fiber in the U.S.
Yep.
I mean, they've got a lot going for them. So soon we may have to bow to Google if you want to connect to the interwebs. They will own all of the pipes.
I'm okay with that because I believe that they will do good and not evil.
Yeah, well, that is their saying, isn't it?
Yeah. But
don't be evil.
Don't be evil.
That's under their current rule. I mean, I'm afraid of any corporation running
everything,
having a monopoly.
Yep.
But right now, Google, I agree with you. Google has our best interests, or Google doesn't have our disinterest.
Right. No, Google's been very good, I believe. I don't believe they've been evil in any way, and they've certainly slipped up here and there a little bit whenever they're
privacy settings.
Yeah, right. But I don't think it's been anything detrimental.
No.
Yeah.
Especially compared to their competitors.
No.
Yeah.
So anyway, the Droid X will be available in July. We'll see how it works, but that's one feature that I wish the iPhone would have. I know that the iPhone 4 and any iPhone 3GS with OS 4 installed on it will also be able to tether, but you have to call AT&T and pay for that service in order to tether, and you can only tether to one device, I believe.
Yeah, and it's a lot easier just to jailbreak your phone and tether like that.
So, will
the 3GS operating system actually does support tethering. It's just disabled within the operating system. It's in there already.
So as soon as we get an iPhone on Verizon, we'll probably have this feature.
Yep.
When will that be?
After hell freezes over?
I wonder how much
good.
AT&T is paying Apple to remain this long the only company you can get an iPhone through.
Give the federal government a little bit more time, and they'll say you have to support other networks.
Yeah, you're probably right. I will say that since the launch of the iPad, Apple, which again is exclusive on AT&T, Apple stock is up like 30%, and the iPhone is more than 70% of its revenue. The iPhone.
I believe it. Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know how many new customers AT&T has gotten just because no one can get an iPhone anywhere else? That's
yeah.
But whatever, free market.
Yeah.
I'm with you there. I'm with you there.
And that is, I think, also part of the reason that you're seeing these other phones come out. If iPhone was available on every other carrier, I'm not sure that Droid would be as popular as it is as an alternative. And even Palm Pre and even a lot of the other ones, everyone would just get an iPhone. I think if you want to use another network, you have to look at these other devices, and that's one of the only things some of these devices have going for them. You're not really seeing Droids being real popular on AT&T.
Mike, did you see the article, the news item about getting WebOS to run on a netbook?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, there was something out there.
I have been watching carefully. I'll mention real quick before we wrap up. Of course, the big news a couple of weeks or a month ago was that Palm was bought out by HP, or was going to be, and apparently that has been approved by the shareholder, so that is going to go through. It's already been filed with the FCC. Looks like that's a done deal, and Palm people are jumping boat left and right. But but we shall see. It'll be interesting to see. A spokesperson for HP said that they do expect to have new devices out next year that'll be running WebOS. They haven't specified if those will be mobile phones or not, but they said new devices next year. So I'm excited to see. I still really love my Palm Pre, but the problem is I believe it will be a year or more before I see a new device, and that's going to be tough. I might have to check out this new iPhone or something.
You switched networks to get the Palm Pre.
I sure did. And AT&T has better service where I live, and I had to switch to Sprint in order to get the Palm Pre.
Mm-hmm.
And I still love the Palm Pre, and I still believe it's the best mobile operating system out there, especially multitasking and just it's sexy like the iPhone, but it's functional like a Android.
So one thing on that real quick, I downloaded OS 4 and updated my iPhone 3GS with the
How
OS
long did
4.
that take you?
Oh, like 20 minutes.
Oh, okay. I've heard rumors of it taking hours on some devices.
Oh, no, I didn't have any problems with it. So the multitasking, my problem with this upgrade has just been the sheer lack of documentation. They're like, oh yeah, download OS 4 and you can do multitasking. You can create folders. You can blah, blah, blah. Well, they don't tell you how to do any of that stuff. I had to I spent 20 minutes just trying to figure out how the hell to get how to see what my, the other apps that I had running were. Turns out you just have to click the home screen button twice, and then it shows you kind of your dock at the bottom. But they also don't tell you that you're no longer exit an application. They just all stay
always
running.
Mm-hmm.
They're always running unless you...
And that's the way it is with a lot of mobile platforms, including Windows Mobile. And I think that's the way Android works as well.
It is.
You have to run a task manager program to actually end a program.
Yeah, you can go into your application management and force a close.
Yep.
And it's a complaint across all mobile phone operating systems. I don't know.
With one exception.
Is WebOS like that?
No, WebOS is not like that. Those who can actually see the video maybe will be able to see this. But all you have to do if you want to close a program is just swipe it up, and it closes the program. And people argue with me, and they'll say, that doesn't actually close it, that just hides it. But it doesn't. It really does close it. And I don't understand why that's so freaking difficult for every other mobile phone platform. I mean, it's so intuitive, to switch between programs just by swiping your finger back and forth, and to zoom out on them by clicking underneath them. And when you're done with them, just to swipe up and they close and they go away. It's super intuitive. They don't even have little X's to click to close. It's just, I don't understand why other mobile phones can't do that. The multitasking is the thing that really holds me on to WebOS. Because they're not going to come up with a new device for at least a year, I suspect 2 years. And there's not nearly as many apps out there, and those that are out there are not nearly as well developed as those for iPhone. But darn it, I sure love being able to do more than one thing at once, and that easily.
You just have fewer things that you can do at once.
Right. Well, and what do you really need on the phone? I don't really need 200 different games. I need my calendar, my email, my phone, my task list, and all that stuff's on there. Google Maps, what else do I use on a regular basis? You get the idea.
And honestly, all of that stuff, that's not going to, eat up your battery life by running in the background. But it's like I left the New York Times app open the other day. Holy crap, I never saw my battery drop so fast because the default setting is to update every 15 minutes or something. And, just sits there and churns on the 3G network. And so anyway, long story short, OS 4, I like it. I am appreciative of the multitasking, but I think it could have been done better, i.e. there should be an option to not just dock the application, but to close it without, because it takes like 7 seconds of total finger swiping and holding the home screen to close all of the applications you have open. If you don't,
I'm surprised that Apple did multitasking so poorly, and it's almost a misnomer. It's not true multitasking either. But I'm surprised they did it so poorly on there. I think that now that
what do you mean? How is it not true multitasking?
Well, in the background, there's only a certain number of things that applications are allowed to do. There's, I think, 7 different APIs that they can hit while they are not running.
Right.
And so there's some developers that were very unhappy about that because there's certain things they simply couldn't do.
I don't know why you're surprised by this when Apple, I mean, for years now, has been limiting the ability to run more than one application at a time, except those that were developed by them.
That's right. That's exactly right. Their applications have full multitasking. Well, and I understand that, and I understand their argument about trying to keep the thing running smoothly and stability and so on. Whatever, that's fine. I'm not surprised about this weird limitation with the APIs. What I am surprised at is how it's not intuitive. How opening a program and seeing other programs running and closing them, I would have thought they would have been more like the web OSs, where it's just so obvious how you would do it. You shouldn't have to read documentation. And that's been the thing with Apple's, Apple's iPods and iPhones and iPads, is that you don't need documentation. It's just obvious how you use it. And I think they've missed the boat with this one.
Maybe it's because they pushed it out again.
Maybe.
They forced it out.
They did.
They forced it.
Honestly, it's a really good OS in general. I like Apple, but the lack of documentation. I've had the iMac now for 2.5 months almost, and there's still on here that I don't have any idea how to do or where to find or where to go. And the first thing they try and get you to do when you go to the apple.com/support is to make an appointment at the Genius Bar. I'm like, F you, just give me the friggin' PDF file. It shows me how this GD program runs and tells me what the freaking web or the keyboard shortcuts are.
Apple is very good at self-preservation or self-perpetuation.
Yeah.
You are very dependent on them because there's not a big community following for Apple with regards to their operating system. It's not huge like you would have with
those
Windows and
the community that does exist is very hardcore, but it's just not as vast as with the PC or.
And they are hardcore, and you often get, as you will with just any geeks in any hardcore geeks in any area, you'll get some arrogance that some people find very difficult to deal with.
But you know what, guys? Like, I paid a hell of a lot of money for this computer, and the pushback I get is, oh, we'll just go onto the online community forums. No, like I didn't pay to let some other dude in Arkansas who has nothing better to do give me tech support. Like I paid the tech support that I need for this very expensive computer I bought should come with the freaking thing. Where it drives me nuts. That's
up Steve Jobs.
Oh yeah, don't you have phone support with them? Can't you call them and ask them where the icon is?
I can for the first year.
Where the icon is?
Well, I figure it's a Mac user. Where's the any key? I'm just kidding. I have an iPad. I don't have an iPad. I have an iPhone. What do I have? iPod Touch and a couple other Apple devices.
You really want an iPad? It's just a giant.
No, I don't.
iPod Touch.
No, I don't need. Well, I wouldn't mind having one. If someone gave me one, I wouldn't turn it down.
I had my hands on one the other day, and it's. I looked at it, I booted it up, I set it up, and then I looked at it and said, what do I want to do with this? I don't want to do anything with this. I'd rather use my laptop where I have a full keyboard.
Yeah.
And I can do stuff rather than, play music on a really, really large MP3 player.
You can also read books on it as long as you're not outside.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, speaking of books, real quick, I was reading this. Did you see that they started a price war on e-readers?
Yes,
that is awesome.
The Barnes and Noble Nook knocked down to $199. So then Amazon returned by lowering the price on their Kindle by $70 down to $190 now.
Yep. There's no competition there as far as I'm concerned. I mean, the Kindle's the way to go.
Not at all.
In fact, I've been tempted to upgrade. I have a 3 or 4 year old Kindle One. And I've been tempted to upgrade to the new one
Yeah.
After they dropped it by $70.
I know. I
Mine looks so ancient and ugly and square and, like it's from the 80s. And this new one actually looks half decent.
If they had done this like a week ago, I probably would have asked for a Kindle for my birthday, but I think I missed the boat on that one. But anyway, if anybody's still on the fence about iPad, Amazon's Kindle, or the Barnes & Noble Nook e-reader, I think the vote on the podcast here today would be go get yourself a really cheap Amazon Kindle, which is 3G wireless all the time for free, my friends.
Yep.
So
that's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, and of course, it's not a fair comparison between the iPad because the iPad does a little bit more than what the Kindle does.
Yeah, but you can't read it outside.
Barely.
Right. That's right. Well, and, it depends on what you're going to read. It's also not color, the Kindle.
Not yet. That's true. The next generation will likely be color if they figure out how to do e-ink in color.
Yeah, but the e-ink is just so swell.
Yeah,
it's just very nice. Swell. Anyhow, all right, wrap it up. Thank you guys. Appreciate you being in here. Our next podcast is Sunday, August 15th at 12 noon Eastern. Again, Sunday, August 15th at noon Eastern. Go to techguy.tv then to be able to log in and see us live and join the chat room that was practically empty all day today. I don't know where everybody is today. But maybe because we missed a couple, everyone's off schedule. But we will be there August 15th, we promise. And also you can go to techguide.tv, download previous episodes, see the schedule, see show notes, links to all the articles we mentioned. All of that's at techguide.tv. We get a lot of our stories from the website. Go to techguide.org, go to the forums, and under tech-related news, all kinds of tech stories that you might be interested in, many of which we mentioned during the podcast. So check that out, and we will see you next time. Brian, where can they find out something about you?
You guys can find me on the web at brianmhanson.com, on Twitter as Handy9, HANDEE9, on Skype as Improv Comic. Where the hell else can you find? You know what? I don't want to be found. Forget all that stuff I just said.
I think it's too late now. And Danny, how about you?
I'm pretty much with Brian. I don't want to be found, but I occasionally post on Twitter as Linux File, and I'm occasionally in the forums on Tech Guy as Linux File.
Right on.
LINUXPHILE.
And you need to update your other website sometime.
Yes, both of them.
Yeah, as if you've been busy with something else lately.
Yeah, the company just moved.
Oh, really?
We moved the company last night or Friday night. That was another data center move, basically.
I was speaking more towards the family changes, not so much the business changes. But no wonder I haven't heard from you.
Yeah, it's been a rough couple of weeks.
No problem. Well, I'm glad you were able to make it, and hopefully we'll see you again August 15th.
Absolutely.
And thanks everyone for listening. Have a good one.
Merry Christmas.
It. Well, we'll go with that. We'll see what we can get.
All right.
Okay.
Welcome to the Tech Support Guy Show. I'm Mike Cermak, known on the site as Tech Guy, and I didn't turn off the preview yet, so this isn't recording. Hey, I realize it right now within the first 3 seconds, and not 3 minutes in, so I get half credit. Son of a bitch.
Half credit. Oh, that'll get that and a nickel by Tootsie Roll.
I don't think it will anymore. Maybe when you were a kid. All right. So anyhow, as I was saying, I did that just to get you all in a good mood.
Mm-hmm.